The encounter in the dust. The twin suns burned over the deadlands of Veltrax 5, a desert planet forgotten by the galaxy. Orange sand stretched in every direction. The wind howled like a wounded beast. And from the broken clouds above, a small, silver ship came crashing down, spinning, sparking, dying. Inside the ship, Laxa Varel, a young Zalari noble and imperial tactician, braced herself for impact. Her hands gripped the controls, her black eyes wide with panic. She had trained for battle her entire life, but this was chaos. A mechanical failure, sabotage. She didn't know. She only knew that her ship slammed into the sand with a violent crash and everything went dark. When she woke, her body ached. Smoke filled the broken cockpit. The ship was torn apart, half buried in the dunes. Her comms were dead. Her arm was bleeding. She forced herself out of the wreckage, dragging her bag and a plasma blade into the burning sun. Veltrax 5 was a prison. No water, no cities, no rescue, and she was alone, or so she thought. Laxa walked for hours, her body weak and her vision blurry. Just as she stumbled near a jagged rock formation, she saw something, or someone, moving through the sand. At first, she raised her blade, but the figure didn't attack. It stood still, tall, humanoid, dirty clothes. A long scarf covered its face from the sand. A human. She blinked in confusion. What are you doing here? The human didn't answer. Instead, he slowly raised one hand in peace, then pointed to her injury. She narrowed her eyes. Don't touch me. Still, he stepped closer. She was too weak to resist. He tore a strip of cloth from his own sleeve and carefully wrapped her wound. His touch was rough, but not cruel. There, he said. His voice was calm. That'll stop the bleeding. You speak basic? She asked, surprised. Enough, he replied. They sat in silence beneath the rock's shadow. The wind screamed outside. Laxa finally gathered the strength to speak again. I am Laxa Varel of House Zalari. My ship was attacked. You will help me find shelter. Or I will... You'll what? He interrupted. Bleed on me? She blinked. I just saved your arm. You're welcome. His sarcasm burned her pride. But she couldn't deny it. She was helpless without him. What's your name? She finally asked. Reed. Just Reed? That's all you need to know. The sun was dropping fast when Reed suddenly stood up. Move, now. What is it? Laxa asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he pulled her to her feet and guided her behind a ridge of rocks. Moments later, 3 Zalari soldiers appeared. Black armor, glowing visors, weapons drawn. Elite scouts. They were tracking the crash. They'll take me, Laxa whispered. But they'll kill you for being with me. They can try, Reed muttered. He reached down and picked up a rock. Laxa stared. Are you serious? But Reed didn't smile, didn't joke. He moved like water, quiet and sure. As the soldiers approached, he threw the rock, fast, sharp, and struck the first soldier's visor. The helmet cracked with a loud crack and the man dropped. The other 2 raised blasters. Reed charged. One tried to shoot, but the blaster jammed. Sand had clogged the barrel. Reed grabbed another rock from the ground and slammed it into the second soldier's neck. A flash of blue blood. The last soldier tackled him, but Reed twisted, using the man's own weight against him. He drove a sharp stone into the soldier's side. It was over in seconds. 3 elite warriors, defeated, with rocks. Laxa stood frozen. She had trained with energy swords, studied battlefield tactics, commanded fleets, but she had never seen someone fight like that. No armor, no weapons, just instinct and will. You killed them, she whispered. I didn't have a choice, Reed said, breathing hard. They would have killed you first. You're just a human. I'm not just anything. She looked at the bodies, then back at him. Suddenly, her world, the empire, the training, the rules, all seemed fragile. Who are you really, Reed? He picked up her bag and slung it over his shoulder. Let's find shelter. Then we talk. And so, the alien girl followed the strange human into the desert, her heart still racing. She didn't trust him. Not yet. But she had seen something in him, something raw and wild and real. And in that moment, she knew this was only the beginning. Because if a man could take down 3 elite aliens with just a rock, then nothing in the galaxy was safe from him. Who are you, human? Laxa walked in silence behind the strange human named Reed. The 2 suns of Veltrax 5 were finally setting, painting the sky with red and gold streaks. Cold wind crept in as the heat faded, and the sand beneath their boots began to harden under the night air. Her body was still sore. The cloth Reed wrapped around her arm had stopped the bleeding, but the pain remained. Still, her thoughts were elsewhere. How did this man defeat 3 of the Empire's best soldiers with rocks? It didn't make sense. Zalari soldiers were trained, from youth, enhanced with tech, strength, and years of war knowledge. Reed didn't have armor. He barely had water. And yet, he moved like he knew exactly what he was doing. That bothered her. It frightened her. They reached a small cave near a canyon wall. Reed moved inside without speaking, checking shadows, tapping walls with a stick as if he knew what to expect. Laxa followed cautiously, holding her plasma blade just in case. Don't worry, Reed said, placing a small light on the cave ceiling. No animals come here anymore, not since the storms. You've been here before? She asked. Too many times, he said quietly. Laxa sat on a rock, staring at him. She didn't ask for help. She didn't want to owe a human anything. But now she couldn't deny it. He had saved her life. Twice. She finally asked the question burning inside her. Who are you, Reed? Reed didn't answer at first. He pulled a canteen from his belt and handed it to her. She hesitated, then drank. The water was warm, but clean. Then he looked at her with calm, tired eyes. I was a rebel, a long time ago. Laxa's breath caught. Rebel? Against the Empire? He nodded. Against the lies. Against the way your kind destroys what it doesn't control. Laxa stood, angry. You know nothing about my kind. I know enough, he said. I know your empire wipes out entire villages for speaking freely. I know you turn wild planets into mines, and I know you use people like me as tools or trash. She opened her mouth to argue, but the words didn't come. Because deep down, she knew he was right. Reed sat down near the entrance of the cave. The night wind blew softly, and the stars began to appear. I didn't start the war, he said, but I survived it. My team is gone, the others were caught or gave up. And you? She asked. I stayed hidden. Until today. Laxa looked at him in a new way now. He wasn't just some wild man with a rock. He was a trained fighter, a survivor. You attacked 3 soldiers with stones, she said. I didn't attack, I defended, Reed replied. That's what we trained for. We were taught to use what we have, even if all we have is a rock. Laxa sat down slowly. She had spent her whole life studying tactics, simulations, and war protocols. But now, for the first time, she realized something powerful. This human didn't follow rules. He didn't need fancy weapons or orders, he just survived, and that made him dangerous. Hours passed. They spoke little. Laxa tried to sleep, but couldn't. Her mind raced with memories of the crash, the soldiers, and Reed's stone strikes. She opened her eyes. Reed was still awake, sitting outside the cave, watching the stars. She walked up to him quietly. Why did you help me? She asked. He didn't look at her. Because you were alone. That's it? That's enough. They sat under the stars for a while. Laxa broke the silence. You said you were a rebel. That makes you my enemy. Maybe, Reed said. But right now we're not enemies. We're 2 people trying to stay alive. So what now? Reed looked to the north horizon. Tomorrow, we move. There's an old signal tower near the storm cliffs. If it still works, we can call for help. You want to call the Empire? No, he said. But maybe someone else will be listening. The wind howled louder now. Laxa looked at him again. This man, this human, had just changed her entire view of what strength looked like. He didn't brag. He didn't threaten. He simply acted. And maybe, just maybe, she wasn't the only one learning something new tonight. Traps and shadows. The sky turned silver as dawn broke over Veltrax 5. Reed had already packed their supplies. He checked the direction of the wind, watched the sky, and measured something on a broken piece of tech. Laxa watched him silently. He wasn't a soldier, not like the ones in her empire, but he moved like a man who had lived through 100 battles. They began their walk toward the storm cliffs, where the signal tower stood, a place both forgotten and feared. What's waiting there? Laxa asked. Old tech, maybe ghosts, and definitely traps, Reed said. You seem sure? Because I set some of them years ago. The land changed as they walked. The soft sand turned into cracked stone. Metal wreckage and black cables poked from the ground like bones. It wasn't just a desert anymore. It was the graveyard of a lost war, and someone was still watching it. Reed stopped suddenly. Step where I step, he said. Why? He pointed to a pile of rocks ahead. Pressure mine. Laxa's eyes widened. Reed grabbed a metal shard and threw it toward the pile. Click. Boom. A small explosion sent dust into the sky. Laxa coughed, heart pounding. Your people are insane. No, just desperate, he replied. They entered a narrow canyon. The walls were high, the shadows deep. Every step echoed like a whisper of danger. Laxa felt her hand tighten on her plasma blade. Are we alone? She asked. Not anymore, Reed said. At that exact moment, red laser dots appeared on the canyon wall. Turret drones, 3 of them. Laxa jumped back. They're active. I see them. Reed pulled a small round mirror from his pocket. He crouched low, angled it, and let the sun reflect directly into one of the drone sensors. It blinked, whirred, and shut down. What did you just do? Laxa asked, stunned. Overloaded the targeting eye. It blinds them for a few seconds. Using a piece of glass? He smirked. You'd be amazed what humans can do with trash. They moved forward carefully. More. Drones appeared, climbing the rocks, scanning for movement. Reed stayed calm. He used sand to jam a drone's wheels. He used smoke from a flare to hide their steps. He even used sound, banging 2 pieces of pipe together, to send a false echo that lured one drone away. Laxa watched him, confused. You didn't destroy them, you tricked them. Sometimes the best fight is the one you don't need to win, he said. As they reached the center of the ruins, the signal tower finally came into view. It was half buried in stone, cracked, and rusted, but the core looked intact. Reed stepped closer. And that's when it happened. A high-pitched tone filled the air. A defense bot dropped from the tower's side, old, but still deadly. It scanned, targeted, and fired a warning shot that missed by inches. Cover, Reed shouted. They dove behind an old satellite dish. You said this place was abandoned. I didn't say it was safe. The bot advanced. Reed checked his bag. No weapons. No charges. Nothing left. Except, he picked up another rock. Laxa stared. No, you can't be serious. You want to live? He asked. I'm not dying for a rock plan. Reed threw the rock, not at the bot, but at a cracked support beam above. The impact hit just right. The beam broke loose and fell, crashing directly onto the bot's head. Sparks flew. The machine collapsed. Dead. Laxa stared at the scene in disbelief. That shouldn't have worked. But it did, Reed said, breathing hard. That's the difference between training and instinct. They climbed up to the control panel. Reed connected a power cable and hit a few buttons. The old signal station blinked to life. Static buzzed through the speaker. "Can you contact your people?" Laksa asked. "No," he said. "But someone else might be listening. Traitors, smugglers, rebels." "Rebels?" she repeated quietly. "The ones who haven't given up," he said. "The ones who still fight." Laksa looked away. She wasn't sure who she was anymore. She had followed orders all her life. Now she was standing beside a man who lived by his own rules, yet had protected her every step of the way. That night, they made a small fire with broken wires and dry wood. The wind howled outside the cave. Reed stared into the flames. "Why were those soldiers chasing you anyway?" he finally asked. Laksa hesitated. "Because I wasn't supposed to survive." "You think someone sabotaged your ship?" She nodded slowly. "My family is powerful, but politics is poison. I was being removed quietly. My crash wasn't an accident." Reed didn't speak for a while, then he said, "You're not safe anymore. And if they find out you're with me, you'll be hunted even harder." "I know." "So what now?" She looked at him. "Now, I stay with you." In the shadows of a dying world, two very different lives had crossed, and something bigger than survival was beginning. Because in the games of empires, queens and kings fall all the time. But a man with a rock, sometimes he changes everything. The Rebel's Secret. The fire crackled softly in the cave. Laksa and Reed sat in silence. Outside, the wind stirred the dust like ancient ghosts whispering across the land. Veltrax 5 had always been harsh, but tonight felt heavier, like the planet itself was listening. Laksa's gaze shifted to Reed. He wasn't just a survivor. He wasn't just lucky. Every movement he made, every trap he avoided, every rock he threw, it all told her something. He had once been something more, and now she needed to know the truth. "You said you were part of the rebellion," she began slowly. "I was. But you never said what you did." Reed sighed. His eyes, once cold and calculating, now looked tired, almost sad. "You sure you want to hear it?" "Yes," she whispered. "Then listen closely. Because once I tell you, you'll never look at me the same again." He leaned back, staring into the fire. "My name wasn't always Reed, it was Kale Rendar, Lieutenant Commander, Human Resistance. I wasn't just in the war. I helped start it." Laksa blinked in disbelief. "You were that Rendar?" "Yes. The one who hijacked the Empire's dreadnought at Corrales. The one who blew up the supply line to Draenex. The one who vanished. After the rebellion fell." Laksa was stunned. She had studied his name at the academy. To her people, Kyle Rendar was a ghost, a war criminal, a myth, a warning to young soldiers never to underestimate humans. But here he was, wearing a torn scarf, sleeping in caves, helping her survive. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" she asked. "Because your empire hunted me for 20 years. Because if you knew who I was, you might have killed me in my sleep." Laksa looked away. She didn't know what to feel. Fear, respect, maybe both. "The war, it cost us everything," Reed continued. "I watched my brothers die. I watched planets burn. And in the end I realized something horrible." "What?" she asked. "We weren't that different from the empire we fought." Laksa frowned. "You became what you hated?" "No. But we let hatred lead us. We wanted freedom, but we started losing our soul to get it." He picked up a small stone and tossed it gently into the fire. "So I walked away. I buried the name Kilrendar. And I became Reed. Just a man." For the first time, Laksa saw a tear in the corner of his eye. Not weakness. Pain. Real pain. "You think I'm still your enemy?" he asked. She looked at him for a long moment, then shook her head. No, I think you're the first honest person I've met. The next morning, Reed woke early and checked the signal tower again. Static still echoed, but no response. Laxa joined him. Still nothing? No one's answered. We might have to head north to the old communication bunker, but it's deep in Hunter territory. She flinched. The Hunters were rogue soldiers, neither Empire nor Rebel, who thrived on chaos, stealing tech and torturing survivors. Even elite squads feared them. We won't survive a direct fight, Laxa said. Then we don't fight. We sneak. They packed their supplies and began the long journey north. Along the way, they passed an old battlefield, rusted tanks, broken mechs, and bones swallowed by the sand. Laxa paused by one wreck. A human flag, torn and faded, still clung to its metal hull. You were really willing to die for this? She asked. Reed stared at the flag. Not for the flag, he said. For the people, for those who had no voice. That night, they made camp inside an overturned carrier. Laxa opened her bag and pulled out a small photo. Reed glanced over. Family? My brother, she said. He died in the academy. They said it was an accident. But you don't believe them? She shook her head. He questioned the Empire. He asked too many questions, then one day he just never woke up. Reed nodded slowly. Now you know why I stopped following orders. The conversation fell silent again. But something had changed. No longer human and alien. No longer Rebel and Empire. They were survivors, and maybe even friends. Suddenly Reed stood, his face tense. Someone's watching us, Laxa grabbed her blade. Where? I'm not sure, but we're not alone. They moved quickly, crawling through a narrow pipe in the wreckage. Just as they exited, a flash of red light exploded behind them, a warning shot. Then a voice, cold, robotic. Come out, Rendar. We know it's you. Laxa froze. Reed growled. Hunters, they must have picked up the signal. He looked at her with urgency. We can't fight, not here. We run. Then let's go, she said. Together they ran into the shadows of Veltrax 5 side by side, past broken ships, shattered steel, and ruins that whispered of wars long past. But their fight was only just beginning. Because now the galaxy knew Kyle. Rendar was alive, and beside him was a Zalari girl who had once been untouchable, but who now trusted a human. Hunted by the past. The stars blinked silently above as Reed and Laxa ran through the jagged canyons of Veltrax 5. Behind them, the ground shook with the march of hunter boots, relentless, cold, and merciless. Laxa's breath came hard. Every step echoed through her bones. She wasn't used to running for her life, not like this. They're gaining, she shouted. Keep moving, Reed said, not even looking back. We're close. To what? To the place where I disappeared, the first time. They crossed a narrow bridge made of old metal sheets stretched between two cliffs. The wind roared beneath them. One wrong step meant death. Reed moved like he'd crossed it 100 times. Laxa, trembling, followed close behind. As soon as they reached the other side, Reed smashed a button hidden in the rock. The bridge collapsed. Metal screamed as it fell. So did one of the hunters trying to cross. That'll slow them down, Reed said, but not for long. They ducked into a tunnel, hidden by thick vines and ancient stone. It led down, deeper, into darkness. Laxa lit a small flare. The walls were covered in carvings, some human, some alien, old resistance symbols, names of fallen fighters, scratches that said we lived here. What is this place? She whispered. Our old base, before the last battle. Why did you never return? Because the war never ended for me. I just kept hiding. The tunnel opened into a small chamber. Inside were crates of food, clean water, and worn clothes. Reed knelt near a crate and pulled out an old device, a communicator. He checked it, turned a dial, and pressed his ear to it. Still works, he whispered. You have allies? Not many, but One or two might still be listening. Suddenly, Laksa fell to her knees. Her arm, still wounded, had reopened. Blood stained the floor. Reed rushed to her side. "You should have told me." "We didn't have time," she said through clenched teeth. He opened a med kit, cleaned the wound, and wrapped it carefully. His hands were steady, gentle. Laksa looked at him. "You've done this before. Too many times. For the first time?" She noticed the scars on his arms, old ones, deep ones. Each had a story. Each told of pain and survival. "Why do you care if I live?" she asked. "Because once I had someone who cared if I lived." "What happened to her?" Reed looked away. The empire happened. Outside, a sound echoed through the canyon. Drums. The hunters were calling for blood. "They found the path," Laksa said. "Then we make our stand here," Reed said calmly. "You want to fight all of them?" "No, I want to stall them long enough to escape." He handed her a pulse detonator. "Hide behind the crates. When I give the signal, blast the entrance." "What about you?" "I'll draw them in." Laksa hesitated. "Why are you risking this for me?" Reed stepped closer. "Because you're not just some alien girl anymore. You saw me. You didn't run. You listened. I still don't understand why you care so much. Because I spent 20 years hating your people, and now I've met one who gave me hope again." Laksa held the detonator tightly. Reed stepped out into the open tunnel, flare in hand. Footsteps pounded closer. Blasters clicked. Voices shouted, "Kyle Rendar, surrender now." Reed raised the flare high. "You want me? Come and get me." Dozens of hunters charged just before they reached him. "Now!" he yelled. Laksa hit the trigger. Boom! The entrance exploded in fire and smoke. The roof caved in behind Reed, cutting off the hunters. Dust filled the chamber. Laksa coughed, crawling through the rubble. "Reed!" No answer. "Reed!" A hand reached through the smoke. It was him, covered in ash, coughing, but alive. "Next time," he said, grinning weakly. "We don't wait so long to hit the button." They escaped through a side tunnel and reached open land again by nightfall, exhausted, wounded, but alive. They made camp under an old crashed starship's wing. The night was cold, but Laksa didn't care. She looked at Reed across the fire. "Why? Did you save me again?" "Because I believe you're going to change everything." "How?" "Because you've seen both sides now. The Empire, the war, me." "What if I don't want to lead anything?" Reed smiled. "Sometimes the leaders we need are the ones who don't want to lead." The stars above seemed closer. Tonight, and for the first time in her life, Laksa wasn't afraid of them. She was part of a story now. Bigger than blood, bigger than empires. A story that began with a human and a rock. The Queen's Blade. By morning, the wind had slowed. Dust no longer howled across Veltrax 5. The world felt quieter, as if the planet itself was waiting to see what Laksa would do next. She stood near the edge of a cliff, looking down at the valley. In her hand, she held her royal blade, a symbol of her noble bloodline. It shimmered softly in the sunlight, untouched by war or dirt. "What now?" she asked softly. Reed stepped beside her. "We keep moving. Toward..." "What?" "Toward the truth." They moved through the red hills of the western wastes, once a battlefield, now a graveyard. Bones and broken banners littered the ground. The silence felt holy, like the land still remembered the screams. Laksa gripped the hilt of her sword tighter. "My father gave me this blade when I was 12, she said quietly. "To protect yourself?" Reed asked. "No. To remind me I belong to the ruling house." Reed looked at the blade. "It's beautiful, but you don't wear it like a weapon. You carry it like a burden." They stopped at a hidden cave, one of Reed's old hideouts. Inside, he uncovered something wrapped in cloth, a data core. "What is that?" Laksa asked. "My confession," Reed said. He connected it to a device, A hologram appeared, images of old battles, destroyed villages, and Reed, then known as Kale Rendar, leading the resistance. I recorded everything, he said. Every mistake, every decision. I wanted the galaxy to know the truth one day. Why show me? Because you might be the one to carry it forward. Laxa looked at the screen. She saw people cheering as Reed delivered food to starving colonies. She saw him comforting orphans after a bombing. She saw him crying in the ruins of a base. You weren't just a fighter, she whispered. You were trying to save something. I was trying to save hope. That night, as the fire cracked softly, Laxa spoke. I was supposed to rule my world one day. But now I'm hiding, running, with a man my people call a terrorist. Do you regret it? Reed asked. No, she said. Because for the first time I'm not blind. She took off her royal crest, set it on a rock, then held out the blade. I don't want to rule with blood anymore. Reed blinked. What are you saying? I want to fight for peace, like you did. The next morning, Laxa took the blade to the top of the hill. She raised it, then dropped it point first into the ground. This blade belonged to the Empire, she said. Now it stays here, buried, like the lies I once believed. Reed watched her, and for the first time, he bowed his head. You're not that girl anymore, he said. No, she replied. I'm something new. Something stronger. Suddenly, a voice called from the rocks. Laxa. They turned. 3 alien rebels approached, Zalari like her, but worn and weary. We saw your message, one said. We followed your signal. We didn't believe it, until now. Laxa stepped forward. I'm not your princess anymore. Then what are you? She took a breath. I'm your sister, a survivor, and I'm done running. The rebels nodded. There are others, waiting, hiding, willing to listen if you lead. Reed looked at her. Told you, he whispered. Sometimes the ones who don't want power are the ones who deserve it. That night, a fire burned brighter than any before. It wasn't for warmth, it was for rebirth. A new symbol was carved into the cave wall, a fusion of the rebel mark and the Zalari crest. Hope reborn. Later, Reed sat alone outside. Laxa joined him. You help me find my path, she said. But what about yours? Reed looked at the stars. I think I was always waiting for someone to remind me why I fought. And did I? He smiled. Yes. You reminded me that peace is still worth dying for. They sat in silence. 2. Souls once enemies, now bound by choice, and somewhere in the shadows of Veltrax 5. The next chapter was preparing to be written, not by kings, not by generals, but by a girl who gave up her blade, and the man who taught her how to live without. 1. Rise of the New Flame. The wind was calm across Veltrax 5. In the valley below, fires lit up like stars fallen to the ground. But they weren't for destruction. They were signals. Beacons. Reed and Laxa stood on a ledge, overlooking what was once barren wasteland. Now, it held people. Zalari rebels, human survivors, aliens from broken systems. They had come because they heard something. They felt something. Something changing. Are you ready? Reed asked softly. Laxa nodded. Her voice trembled, but not from fear. Yes. I don't know what I'll say, but I'll speak from truth. Then they'll follow. Laxa stepped forward onto a raised platform made from wreckage. 100 eyes turned to her. More watched. Through hidden feeds, across satellites, across systems, even from deep within Empire territories. She took a breath. Her voice rang out. My name is Laxa. I was once a princess of the Zalari royal line. I was raised to believe humans were enemies. That rebellion was chaos. That order must be kept through fear. She paused. But then I met a man who showed me what real strength is. All eyes turned to Reed. He stood silently behind her. She continued. He fought not for revenge, but to protect those no one else would. He gave me food when I had none. He gave me shelter when I was hunted. He gave me truth when I was lost. Her hands trembled as she held up a small, glowing crystal, the data core Reed had saved. This is his story, his pain, his warning. I now give it to the galaxy. Watch it, learn from it, let it break your walls, let it rebuild your soul. The crowd was silent. Then, slowly, hands began to rise. Alien claws, human fingers, mechanical limbs, raised in unity, a sign of respect, a sign of hope. Later that night, Reed sat by the fire, alone again. Laksa approached and sat beside him. You did it, she said. No, he replied, you did. They're calling it the Flame Pact, she said. An alliance between broken people, lit by truth. Reed chuckled. Nice name. They want you to lead. I already did once, it broke me. Then lead differently, with peace. He shook his head. This is your time, Laksa. I'll just stand by your side. Then promise me something. Anything. She smiled. Stay alive. Weeks passed. The message spread like wildfire. Systems, once silent, began speaking out. Soldiers laid down weapons. Children learned both Zalari and human history. Together. The Empire shook, not from war, but from truth. One night, a drone landed quietly in the camp. It carried a single object. Small medallion, the seal of the old Zalari Emperor. A note was attached. Let the girl lead. She has already won more hearts than armies ever could. Laksa looked at Reed. Even my enemies are listening. Reed smiled. Then maybe the galaxy still has a chance. Years later, a new capital rose, not built on fear, but on unity. Laksa led it, not as queen, but as voice of the flame. Reed stayed near, advisor, teacher, friend. Sometimes they laughed about that rock, the rock that took down 3 elites, the rock that changed everything. In every school, young students studied the Flame Pact, and every child learned one simple story. Once there was a man with no army, a girl with no trust, and a world with no hope. But together, they lit a fire no empire could ever put out. And on quiet nights, when stars filled the sky, Laksa would still sit beside Reed. No crowns, no guards, just 2 survivors. Looking at the galaxy, they helped heal.